Mr. Goody here, and today our HP is overheating. It is a series of HPs called the HP 15. So I got my mask on and I'm going to go wash my hands and we're going to prepare for the surgery.
This is the running idle temperature of the laptop before the surgery. You can see that it reaches over 70 degrees Celsius and then it shuts itself down. First, you're going to need some tools. You're going to need a Phillips screwdriver and some plastic picks and spudgers. First, you take out the battery, and then you're going to take that Phillips screwdriver and you're going to take out all the screws on the bottom of the laptop. By the way, this problem is very common in the HP 15 series laptops. Okay, once you get the optical drive out, underneath you will see these flat screws that need to come out near the bezel. There are 3 of them. Since this one is used, there are only 2 screws, which is enough to hold it in. But there should be 3. So go ahead and take the last one out, and as you're putting these screws over to the side, you're going to want to put them in an order that you're not going to forget where they go, and you definitely don't want to lose any. Okay, now the next step is there are these almost like secret screws that you have to pry these little rubber feet up. So you can just take the same screwdriver, pry the rubber foot up and out. It's going to have like sticky residue. And you're going to do it for the other rubber foot too. You just gently pry it up, and then it's going to reveal another Phillips screw. So as I'm showing you these, those are the 2 screws that you want to take out. And you have to make sure you get all of the screws out that are on the bottom of this laptop, because if you do not, then the top will not be able to lift off and you will not have access to the inside of the laptop. And there will also be 1 screw close to where the battery is. Now, once you get all the screws out, you're going to want to fold up the laptop, and near the center here, that is what you want to take the plastic pick, which is what I'm taking now, and then I'm going to round the laptop. You put the plastic tip in, you push up, and you go around the edges of the laptop all the way around, and that will loosen up the keyboard and the whole entire top bezel portion of the laptop in this HP 15 series laptop. And remember, why we are doing this today is because these series of laptops are known to have a malfunctioning heat pipe on the heatsink and fan. The original ones, as they ship from the factory, go bad in under a year. It's been speculated that they leak out the fluid inside the pipes. Okay, once you get the laptop open, you're going to see these ribbon cables. There's one here that connects the keyboard, and there's one here that connects the mouse and the touchpad. So there are these little plastic clips that need to be gently pushed upwards, and you just pull out the ribbon cable. It disconnects. Very simple. And you're going to want to do that with the touchpad on the mouse too. And there was a third one that I just pulled out right there in the upper left that connects to the power button underneath the bezel. And this is what the bezel looks like underneath. So there's really not much to it. And we're going to set that to the side now because we are ready to work on the inside of this laptop. Now, as you can see here, there are going to be these ribbon cables, these interface cables. Basically, these are the cables that hook to your hard drive and hook your optical drive up. So I'm pointing these out to you now, and they're going to have these like little retention clips that are plastic that you're going to want to gently push them up, slide them up, and you're going to want to pull them back so that they disconnect from the motherboard. Because before this is all over, we're going to take out the entire motherboard. Don't be discouraged though, because this is a lot easier than you think. It's not really a hard task at all. So go ahead and take these ribbon cables off, disconnect them, and then let's just get them out of the way. See, that was easy. And then there are going to be 4 main screws that you need to take off to take out this motherboard. I almost forgot, right here is the ribbon cable that the monitor hooks to, and there's another little cable right beside of it that needs to come out, and this one here is the speakers that you need to disconnect. And just kind of wiggle that a little bit and pull, and it will disconnect easily. And then we're going to go for those 4 screws on the motherboard that you need to unscrew so that the motherboard can come out of the case of the laptop. Some people call it a chassis or a case. It's called different things, but it's the same thing. Okay, there's another screw over here near the bottom right. And another way you can tell that the screw needs to come out is that it will actually have a white triangle kind of shape beside where the screw hole is. And that will mean that that is where a screw goes to mount the motherboard to the case. In the upper right, you can see I'm taking out a 3rd screw that is required to take out the motherboard. Now, the last remaining screw is going to be the wireless card, and it is in the upper right. As you can see, I'm going to take the Phillips screwdriver and I'm going to start unscrewing the Wi-Fi card. This is a PCI Express card that is hooked to the motherboard, and you just take off with 1 screw, and then you just lift the board up, and you can just slide out that wireless card from the motherboard, set it to the side, and then the motherboard has just 1 more connector. If you turn it over, you will see that up here, I'm pointing to it with the screwdriver, there is a power hookup from a power cable, and it just kind of snaps out gently. And then once you do that, the entire motherboard is now loose from the laptop. It's that simple. And then you're going to have access. See, here is the heat pipe that is failing on all of these HP laptops. Okay, next you're going to see that there are 4 Phillips screws, and there is a 5th one up on the fan. Take the one on the fan off first, and that's what I'm doing here, just unscrewing it, and you will see that there is a plug that plugs the fan in to the motherboard. Just gently wiggle that and pull that out of there, and then you will be able to remove the cooling fan. You might want to look at it and see if there's any dust, and we will clean that out later with a soft bristle toothbrush. Now you will see that the heat pipe and heat sink is right here, and this is going to need to come out. I've loosened up the screws, and it just pulls right off of there, and it looks like this. Now this is the part that is failing inside of the laptop, and I have ordered another one actually off of eBay, that is guaranteed to work. You're going to have to match these part numbers up identically, because in this specific laptop, there's a version for the AMD processor, which is the one that I have, and then there's one for the Intel processor, which is a totally different one. So here are the two parts, how you can see how they look identical together. And I'm going to be putting the new one on here in just a few minutes. But first, you're going to need some rubbing alcohol. I recommend at least 91%. And we're going to clean this APU. This is a combined GPU, graphics processing unit, and CPU into one. And we're going to clean the old thermal paste off of this chip. And we're going to get it pretty clean. And then after that, what we're going to do, we're going to apply some new thermal paste. And what this does, it's just a conductor. The paste, you don't want to put too much when you go to put it back on, and you don't want to put not enough. Its job is kind of like, think of it like a peanut butter sandwich, and how it has to put two of those pieces of bread together. Well, the job of this thermal paste is to conduct the GPU to the metal of the heatsink between the thermal paste. It's going to transfer the heat into the heatsink as it rises up, and then it travels down the pipe and it hits the heatsink, and then the fan pulls the heat out of the body and on top from the heat pipe. It's going to pull it out from there too, reducing the temperature of the GPU and the CPU, and it's going to make it run stable, because that is what generates heat inside of your laptop. And as I'm cleaning here, guys, you're going to want to get this, as clean as you can, because you don't want to have to open this thing back up. If you see any other spots on the motherboard at all, that may have dust bunnies or any kind of dirt whatsoever, you may want to go ahead and clean that too. And once you're in this laptop, you can see that the memory is right there. It takes DDR3. And if you want to upgrade the memory, now is a great time. And in this particular laptop, you can upgrade it to 16 gigabytes of memory. So just keep that in mind. While you have all of this open, you may want to go ahead and do all the cleaning and all the upgrading that you want to do, because you don't want to open this back up. Here is the part number to the AMD Beats version of the 15P laptop. And I will put that in the video description box as well. You will want to match that exactly. I have some Arctic Silver thermal compound here. And what I'm going to do, I'm getting ready to apply it to the APU, and it's very simple. You just put just enough, just a little bit. You don't have to overdo it. You don't want to underdo it either. There's many different ways people do this, but I'm simply just going to dab it on with my finger to where you can see the upper area of the APU there is just going to get a kind of like a thin layer. It's not too thick, as you can see. A thin layer across the top of it. And just spread it on all the way around. And then I'm going to go to the next step. The next step, I'm actually going to take the heatsink and fan, and I'm going to put a drop on there. Hold on one second and I'll show you. Okay, here is the heatsink. This is the heatsink, and I've put a dab of thermal paste on there, and then I pull it back off, and you can see how that puts it shows me that it is connecting to the APU in a very good surface area. So since I know it is conducting and well, I'm going to screw the heatsink down. There are 4 Phillips screws, and you want to torque these all the way down, not too rough, but you do want to make sure they're torqued all the way down. I'm going to do it catty corner, like diagonally, until all 4 are on really good as far as they can go. And now it is time to put the fan back on. You put in the 1 screw, and then after you get the screw on, of course there's going to be the plug that you plug it into the motherboard. You may have to push it down gently, and then it's on there. And after all that, we're ready to put the motherboard back in the case. You're going to connect that power cord that goes from the power jack to the motherboard. It just clips in, and that's what I'm doing here. It will only clip in one way, so don't force it if it's not going to go. So once you get it clipped in, you can then turn over the motherboard, and then you are ready to start mounting it in. Now the next half of this should be familiar to you, because it's exactly the opposite of what you just did. We're going to be putting everything back together, and it's pretty much the same way that you took it apart. So one of the first things we're going to do, we're going to seat the motherboard in here, and you're going to want to make sure that none of the cables or ribbons are stuck underneath the motherboard as you mount this in. I'm going to start by putting the mini Wi-Fi card onto the motherboard. I'm going to see that there are no ribbon cables or cables that's going to be smashed underneath the motherboard, and that it is clear. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the screws, and I'm going to get my Phillips screwdriver, and I'm going to start mounting down the motherboard into the laptop case. Okay, so you just start screwing in the screws. Remember, there are 4 of them. If you're ever inside of a laptop and you get confused, in a modern day laptop, usually the screws that you need to put screws in, or holes you need to put screws into, will have a white triangle mark. Not always the case, but a lot of the times. So in this laptop, there's going to be 4 if you count the Wi-Fi card of the way I've took it out in this video. And again, don't be discouraged in doing this. This is not like building a spaceship, or you don't have to work at NASA to do this. Okay, now I'm getting ready to put the top screws back in. And this is, again, going to mount the main board. This is going to mount right here, the Wi-Fi card, back onto the motherboard. And once that is done, okay, next what we're going to want to do is, remember there is a plug-in up here, and there's 2, and what it does, it plugs in the LCD screen on the laptop. You will want to put it in and push down the plastic tab retainer. And once those 2 are in there, then the screen is hooked back up. And that's very important, that you want to get that in there right. You want to do it right the first time. This is now the 4th screw that is going into the motherboard. The 4th and final screw. So once this is in, then the motherboard is securely into the laptop case. I'm going to take the soft bristle brush that I've already done off camera, but I'm going to do it a little bit more to clean out the fan, so to make sure that there's no dust. And like I said, you can go ahead and clean out any other parts that are dirty while you're in here. Now I'm going to take the interface cables and I'm going to hook them back up. You want to make sure you put them in snug and accordingly, that they fit right, and then you're going to want to push down that plastic retainer tab. And they only fit one way, and you'll know when it's in if it's tight and snug, and then you're going to want to push down that plastic tab. You're going to want to do this with all of those cables. I'm testing out to make sure that the Wi-Fi antenna is plugged in good. Now I am putting in the ribbon cable to the off and on switch, which is underneath the top of the laptop, where the keyboard that we took off earlier, that bezel that has the keyboard, there's a little module up there, and it's going to go in just like those other ribbon cables. You're going to want to push it in, and then you're going to want to push down that plastic retention, and then I'm going to turn it over, and we're going to have some more that we're going to have to connect on up. Now, I did connect the speakers in case you didn't see that. That goes on before you put the top back on. The last two you're going to want to connect is the keyboard and the touchpad. Now the keyboard, you kind of just slide your hands under here, and again, there's plenty of clearance, and it's not as hard as it looks. You just line it up underneath this plastic retention tab, and then once you have it into place, you just push that tab down, and then it locks it right in, just like that. And then the next thing right here is the touchpad, and you're going to want to lock it into right there, and then push the plastic tab down. Now once that's done, you push the top on, and you want to snap the top back on. You'll hear it kind of snap a little bit all the way back in as it's reconnecting to the case. Once that is done, you turn the laptop over, and you are ready to start putting the screws back in to the laptop. Okay, I'm going to show you that there's 3 here that you want to do first. There are the ones that were under those rubber feet. I'm going to put those in first. There is also one in the middle by where the battery compartment is. Right here. So we're going to get that one in there. And then after this one, of course, we're going to put in the right screw to where the right rubber foot goes on. And once all of these screws go on, do not forget to put the rubber feet back on, as there should be still plenty of sticky adhesive for it to go back on right. If not, you can always, get your own glue and glue them back on. That will also work. So the next part you're going to want to do after that, you're going to want to make sure that you take the screws that were on the bezel by where the optical drive goes, and you're going to want to put those back on. Like I said, you'll probably have 3, and I only have 2 because I got this laptop used. So 2 is plenty enough to hold the case down, and that's what I put it in. These are the flat screws that go just right above where the optical drive slides in, and I'm making sure that it's on there nice and firm and the way it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to slide in the optical drive, which just means optical drive is like a physical media drive, like a DVD burner, which a lot of laptops do not have these days. I'm going to put the rubber feet back on. The left one is still sticky. It's just going to go back on, push that, wiggle that on just a little bit. It's good to go. And you're definitely going to want to put these on because this holds the laptop up off of the table. Just go ahead and put the right one on, kind of smash it down. And when it holds it up off the table, it's going to play a big part in the ventilation, you know, drawing the heat out and letting the laptop breathe, basically. Now, all of the other places here that I'm showing you are where all the other screws go. So all of the screws that are left, you're going to want to just be putting them back in the bottom of the laptop. After those are all in, you're going to want to put the battery back in and just snap it down. And then just turn your laptop back over, give yourself a pat on the back because you're all done and you saved yourself some money and time.
And this is the average idle running temperature after the surgery of the laptop. And as you can see, there's over 30 degrees difference.